She gripped the stem of her wine glass like it was a weapon. The chandeliers shimmered above her, 1,000 diamonds watching her every move. Across the room, he stood calm and unbothered, a man who'd fought his way into this world she was born into. The billionaire's daughter smiled, tilted her glass, and with one defiant flick of her wrist, crimson wine splashed across the black CEO's pristine suit. The room froze. Cameras clicked. Her smirk faltered. And within minutes, everything she knew, her wealth, her family, her name, began to crumble. Pride had poured the wine. Fate was about to spill the rest. Hey everyone, welcome to today's story, one that'll make you question pride, power, and what really defines worth. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. I always love seeing how far our stories reach. And don't forget to hit that like button to support the channel. It really helps us bring you more powerful emotional stories like this one. Now, let's begin. Celeste Harrington moved through the grand ballroom as if she owned every chandelier, every smile, every trembling heartbeat that stopped when she passed. Her gown shimmered like liquid gold, her hair pinned perfectly into a look that screamed effortless luxury. But beneath that flawless exterior, her pulse was chaos. She had perfected the art of pretending, the laugh that came half a second too late, the polite nod that hid boredom, the empty glance toward a father who never showed up. Tonight, she was here to play the part again, the loyal daughter of Conrad Harrington, one of New York's most powerful billionaires. The gala wasn't just a celebration, it was a performance, and she was the main act. Across the city, Desmond Cole adjusted his cufflinks in a mirror that reflected both pride and ghosts. He had built everything from nothing, his tech company, his reputation, his armor. Every polished move hid the struggle beneath, the long nights coding in a borrowed office, the rejection letters, the glances that told him he didn't belong. Now he stood on the threshold of a partnership with Harrington Global, the same empire that once ignored his proposals. He was determined to stay composed, but something in him bristled, the memory of being unseen too many times. When Desmond entered the gala, the air shifted. Conversations paused, eyes followed. Celeste noticed him before anyone else. There was something in his stillness, power, restraint, the quiet of a man who didn't need to prove anything. And for reasons she couldn't explain, that bothered her. "That's him," whispered Marissa, her friend, half drunk on champagne. "The CEO who came out of nowhere. The one your father keeps talking about." Celeste's lips curved into a faint smile. "He looks self-satisfied." Marissa laughed. "Maybe he should be. They say he built his company from a laptop in his kitchen." Celeste's eyes flicked toward him again. "Or maybe he's just lucky." Desmond caught her gaze. For a second, neither looked away. The contact was brief, but it left a spark, irritation, curiosity, maybe something else. When her father didn't arrive as promised, Celeste's mood soured. She took another glass of champagne. She hated being the showpiece at her own event. Hours later, Desmond was introduced on stage as the new strategic partner. Applause thundered, but Celeste felt a strange twist of envy. Her father never looked at her like that, proud, admiring. When Desmond spoke, his voice was calm and deep, full of quiet conviction. "Partnership," he said, "isn't about legacy or privilege. It's about purpose." The words hit Celeste like a sting. Legacy. Privilege. Was he talking about her? After the applause faded, she approached him, her heels striking marble like sparks. "Mr. Cole," she said with an icy smile. "Congratulations on your inspiring story." Desmond turned, meeting her gaze evenly. "Thank you, Miss Harrington. Your family's hospitality is generous." The subtext was sharp enough to cut glass. "I imagine it's refreshing," she said, tilting her head, "to be recognized in a room like this." "Recognition doesn't change who I am," he replied. "But it sometimes reveals who others are." Her smile faltered. Before she could answer, cameras flashed. Someone called for a toast. She lifted her glass automatically, hiding the burn of embarrassment under a polished grin. Desmond raised his too, nodding politely. For a moment, the room's glitter blurred. Celeste's heart drummed louder than the music. Something about him unsettled her, not because he was beneath her world, but because he didn't seem to need it. When she glanced toward the entrance again, her father still wasn't there. Another disappointment. Another broken promise. The wine in her glass glowed like blood under the chandelier. She whispered to Marissa, "Watch this." And before reason could stop her, she stepped forward. The crowd parted. Desmond turned just in time to see her smile, a brittle, glittering thing, before she tilted her wrist. The wine poured out in slow motion, cascading down his black suit like crimson silk. Gasps spread like wildfire. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Celeste felt the power surge, fleeting, false, intoxicating. Then she saw his eyes. He didn't shout. He didn't move. He just looked at her, calm, unflinching, deeply disappointed. It was worse than anger. "You've made your point," he said softly, handing his glass to a waiter. "I hope it was worth it." And then he walked away. Her throat tightened. The room seemed to shrink. Marissa's voice trembled. "Celeste, what did you just do?" I don't know." The rest of the night blurred, murmurs, judgment, humiliation. Celeste's confidence cracked, but she clung to her mask until the last guest left. Outside, the city glimmered indifferently. She pressed her palms against the limousine window, heart pounding. Across the street, Desmond stood under the awning, rain beginning to fall. He looked up once, met her gaze through the glass, then turned away. The rain streaked down like tears she refused to shed. Inside her phone, a notification buzzed. One message from her father's assistant: "Call me. It's urgent." The sec just froze the accounts. Celeste's blood went cold. Pride had poured the wine. Fate had just pulled the trigger. "Before we go deeper, let me ask you something. Have you ever done something impulsive, only to realize it cost you more than you ever imagined? Tell me in the comments." The sound of rain followed Celeste home that night, soft, relentless, like the universe whispering a warning she refused to hear. Her penthouse sat above the clouds, a palace of glass and silence. Every inch of it screamed success, yet it all felt like a stage set, fragile and false. She stood before the mirror, mascara smudged, red wine dried on her wrist, and replayed the moment again and again, the look in Desmond's eyes before he turned away. It wasn't anger. It was disappointment. That, somehow, hurt more than fury ever could. Meanwhile, Desmond sat alone in the back of his car, staring at the city lights sliding across the window. His assistant, Malik, glanced at him from the front seat. "You okay, boss?" Desmond didn't answer immediately. "I've dealt with worse," he said finally. But his reflection in the glass told a different story. He wasn't angry at Celeste, not entirely. He was angry that after all he'd achieved, one careless act could still make him feel like the outsider he used to be. The next morning, social media exploded. "Billionaire's daughter humiliates black CEO at gala," the headlines blazed across every platform. Hashtags trended. The video went viral. Memes flooded the internet. Some mocked Desmond, others condemned Celeste. By noon, reporters camped outside her building. She tried to call her father, but every call went unanswered. By evening, news anchors announced something far worse: Harrington Global under federal investigation for fraud and insider trading. The words hit like a thunderclap. Celeste dropped the remote. The room blurred. "No," she whispered. "That can't be real." But it was. Within hours, their stock plummeted. Her father's face appeared on every channel, walking stone-faced beside his lawyers. The empire she'd grown up in, the name that opened every door, was collapsing in real time. She tried to reach him again. Straight to voicemail. She called her assistant, disconnected. Her credit cards froze. Even her driver didn't show up the next morning. The city that had once bowed for her now stared, wide-eyed and hungry, waiting to watch her fall. Across town, Desmond's office buzzed with phone calls and news inquiries. His PR director, Nia, entered his glass-walled office. "We can use this," she said cautiously. "The narrative's already favoring you. The woman who humiliated you, her family's downfall, karma, poetic justice." "If you make a statement," Desmond cut her off with a sharp shake of his head. "No. I don't feed on other people's destruction. Especially not hers." Nia hesitated. "She didn't show you mercy, sir." "And that's exactly why I will," he said. But deep inside, he wasn't sure what he felt. Mercy? Pity? Or something far more dangerous, empathy? Days passed. Celeste's world shrank to 4 walls and a dead phone. Former friends ghosted her. Journalists camped outside her building, shouting questions. When she finally ventured out wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, a stranger recognized her and hissed, "How's it feel to be broke, princess?" The words stung like glass. That night, she sat by the window, scrolling through old photos, her father, her parties, her perfect life. Everything looked like someone else's dream. And then she stumbled upon a photo from the gala, Desmond standing tall, unbothered, a quiet storm in a room full of masks. She zoomed in. Something about that calm strength unnerved her. Why did she keep thinking about him? Why couldn't she stop seeing his eyes? Pride, she told herself. It was pride. She hated what he represented, self-control, integrity, everything she didn't have when she poured that wine. Across town, Desmond stood in his office late at night, watching the same news unfold. The headline scrolled again, Harrington Global faces collapse, empire in crisis. He exhaled slowly. Malik entered with a report. "You see this?" Malik asked. "That family's finished. Karma's fast these days." Desmond didn't answer. His mind was elsewhere, on the sound of her voice, the crack in her mask when the cameras caught her shame. "You think she deserves it?" Malik pressed. Desmond looked out at the skyline. "Deserves a funny word," he murmured. "Sometimes it's not about what people deserve. It's about what they learn." The next morning, Celeste found her apartment door plastered with notices, foreclosure warnings, subpoenas, headlines. She laughed bitterly. "So this is what starting over feels like," she muttered. Her reflection in the elevator mirror looked like a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, terrified. She exited the building into a storm of flashing cameras. One reporter shoved a microphone toward her. "Celeste, how does it feel knowing your father's legacy is gone?" Another shouted, "Do you have anything to say to Desmond Cole?" She froze. The sound of his name hit her like lightning. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she turned and walked away, into the rain, into the chaos, into her own unraveling. Desmond watched it later that night, the video of her pushing past reporters, soaked, humiliated. Something in his chest tightened. He could have looked away, turned off the screen, moved on. But he didn't. For reasons he didn't fully understand, he couldn't. As the city slept, 2 people, one who had lost everything and one who had everything to lose, stared at the same skyline, both wondering why the other's face wouldn't leave their mind. The days blurred together like pages of a book Celeste didn't remember writing. Morning came without purpose, night arrived without rest. Her phone lay dead on the marble counter, useless now, like everything else she once owned. The empire had fallen. Her father was gone, held under house arrest in their Hamptons estate, and she wasn't allowed near him. Every news station replayed his downfall, each headline another wound. Conrad Harrington faces federal charges. The princess of privilege in free fall. The internet that once adored her now turned cruel. Celeste scrolled through the comments beneath her old posts, envy turned to mockery, admiration to venom. She deserved it. Spoiled brat. That's karma. She tried not to care, but the words cut deep. It wasn't just her father's sin she was paying for, it was her own. Every shallow smile, every careless word, every time she had looked down on someone like Desmond. The humiliation at the gala had been just the beginning. Now, the universe was stripping her down to the truth. She sold her jewelry quietly, moved into a small rented apartment downtown, and took a job through a family friend's pity, an entry-level PR assistant position under an alias. The irony wasn't lost on her. She who once hired assistants was now one. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself she didn't miss the life she'd lost. But late at night, when the city lights flickered through her blinds, she would remember his face, Desmond's, calm, composed, unshaken as her world fell apart. Somewhere inside, resentment began to mix with something else she couldn't name. Meanwhile, Desmond's world had never looked more polished. His company's stocks surged after the scandal. His phone buzzed with new partnership offers. The world applauded his dignity for not retaliating publicly. Yet inside, the taste of victory was ash. He told himself he was fine, but some nights, his mind drifted to her, that girl with trembling hands pretending to be untouchable. He remembered the way her eyes flickered before she poured the wine. It wasn't malice, not really. It was something broken. And that haunted him. One morning, his assistant Malik burst into his office with a smirk. "You'll want to see this," he said, placing a tablet on the desk. On screen was a live broadcast of the public hearing about the Harrington scandal. And there she was, Celeste, walking into the courthouse in a plain black suit, no makeup, no sparkle, surrounded by photographers shouting her name like a curse. Desmond froze. She looked small, human. When reporters asked if she had anything to say, she simply whispered, "I'm sorry." The words were nearly lost beneath the noise, but he heard them. He always did. Later that day, fate twisted its knife again. Desmond was called to testify as a witness. Harrington Global had once attempted to buy his company years ago. The courtroom was cold and sterile. He walked in and saw her at the far end of the room. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, time froze. She looked away quickly, shame flickering across her face. When he took the stand, her attorney asked him polite questions about contracts and negotiations. His answers were precise, detached, professional. But when the opposing counsel tried to suggest Desmond's success came from Harrington's connections, his patience snapped. "No one builds what I've built on someone else's charity," he said, voice sharp as steel. "Not then. Not now." The judge's gavel echoed, silencing murmurs. Celeste's eyes lifted, and for the first time, she saw not a rival, not a symbol of her humiliation, but a man defending his name with truth. When court adjourned, she waited near the exit, her heart pounding. "Mr. Cole," she called softly. He stopped but didn't turn. "You don't owe me a word, but—" "I wanted to apologize." Silence. Then he turned, eye steady but unreadable. "Apologies mean little when they come after the cameras stop," he said. She swallowed hard. "You're right. But I had to try." He studied her face for a long moment. The pride was gone, the mask shattered. "Try harder," he said quietly, and walked away. That night, Celeste sat alone on her apartment floor, replaying his words. "Try harder." The phrase sank deep. Maybe he was right. Maybe she didn't even know what trying looked like. For once, she didn't cry. She opened her laptop instead, started applying for jobs under her real name, determined to stand on her own feet, not her father's. Desmond couldn't sleep. He kept hearing her voice, the tremor in it, the sincerity. He told himself he was done thinking about her, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw her in that courthouse, fragile yet defiant. He had spent his whole life fighting people like her father. But she wasn't him. And somehow, that truth unsettled him more than hate ever could. The next morning, Desmond received an email, a charity proposal from a PR firm he occasionally hired for events. His assistant skimmed it. "Small firm, but the proposal's strong," Malik said. "Wants to partner for your mentorship initiative." Desmond barely glanced at the sender. "Set a meeting," he said absently. He didn't know that the email came from Celeste. Not yet. But fate was smiling in silence, waiting for them to collide once more. The morning sunlight spilled over the city, washing away the night's bitterness but not the weight on Celeste's heart. Her cheap apartment still smelled faintly of burnt coffee and anxiety, yet for the first time in months, she felt a flicker of purpose. The PR firm she'd joined had just landed a new client, Coal Industries. The name made her freeze when her supervisor, a brisk woman named Daughther, announced it. He's hosting a new mentorship gala for minority entrepreneurs, Daughther said, flipping through files. You'll be on the project team. It's a huge opportunity. Don't screw it up. Celeste's throat tightened. Desmond Cole. Of all the people in New York, it had to be him. She considered quitting, but pride wouldn't let her. Maybe fate was punishing her. Maybe it was giving her a chance to rewrite her story. Either way, she had no choice. She needed the job. When she walked into Coal Industries the next morning, her pulse thundered. The building was sleek, modern, and intimidatingly quiet, the kind of place that hummed with control. She kept her head down as the receptionist handed her a badge. Conference room C, the woman said kindly. Celeste adjusted her blazer, whispered a prayer, and stepped inside. Desmond was already there. He didn't look up at first, flipping through reports as his assistant Malik prepped slides. But when he finally glanced toward the doorway, his jaw tightened. Their eyes met. Time folded in on itself. The air between them thickened, full of everything unspoken. Miss Harrington, he said slowly, voice cold enough to cut glass. Didn't expect to see you here. Daughther, oblivious to the tension, smiled. Celeste's one of our junior consultants. She'll be handling your PR coordination. Desmond's eyes didn't leave hers. I see. She swallowed hard. Mr. Cole. Thank you for allowing us to work with you. His lips twitched, not quite a smile. You're welcome, though I can't say I had much say in the matter. Daughther laughed awkwardly. Well, this is exciting. Fresh perspectives, right? She hurried out to take a call, leaving them alone. The silence stretched. Celeste spoke first. If you want me off this project, I'll understand. Would that make it easier for you? He asked, leaning back. Maybe, she admitted. Then no, he said flatly. You'll stay. If you want to rebuild your reputation, prove you can work. The words landed like a challenge. Celeste straightened. Fine. I will. For the next few days, they worked together, or rather, near each other. The meetings were sharp, professional, suffocating with tension. Every exchange was precise, cold, laced with history. But small cracks began to form. One afternoon, when Celeste stayed late finishing a presentation, Desmond walked past her office. She was asleep at her desk, head resting on folded arms, the faint light from her laptop reflecting off her tear-streaked cheek. Something in him softened. Without thinking, he set a blanket over her shoulders. When she stirred slightly, whispering his name in her sleep, he froze. The next morning, she found the blanket and blinked in confusion. You stayed late. Malik teased Desmond when he arrived. That's not like you. Had work to finish, Desmond muttered. But his eyes drifted towards Celeste's empty desk. Later that week, during a site visit for the gala venue, Celeste tripped over a loose cable and spilled a box of flyers. Desmond knelt beside her before she could gather them. Their hands brushed. You don't have to help me, she murmured. You don't have to keep pretending you don't need it, he replied quietly. Their eyes met again, not as enemies this time, but as two people standing at the edge of something dangerous. The gala planning moved fast. Every interaction between them became a battlefield of restraint. During meetings, they clashed over ideas. She wanted warmth and humanity, he wanted efficiency and precision. You can't connect with people through numbers alone, she told him one night, exasperated. And you can't change the world with sentiment, he countered. Maybe not, she said softly, but you can start by trying. He didn't respond, but later, when she wasn't looking, he added her proposed video to the final presentation, a simple clip showing the faces of young dreamers the program would help. It was the first time he'd compromised. The night before the event, they worked side by side in his office, the city glowing behind them. She caught him staring once. "What?" she asked. "You've changed," he said. "Or maybe I just never saw you properly before." Her chest tightened. "Most people never do." He nodded slowly, eyes thoughtful. "Maybe that's the problem with both of us." Silence filled the room, not awkward, but alive. For the first time, they smiled at each other without pretense. The air between them hummed with something fragile, something real. When Celeste finally left, Desmond lingered by the window, watching her walk into the night. Malik's voice came from behind him. "You really think this is a good idea?" "What is?" Desmond asked without turning. "Letting her this close." Desmond's reflection in the glass looked conflicted. "It's not about letting her close," he said quietly. "It's about not pushing her away." The next morning, as the first light broke over the city, Celeste stood on her small balcony, clutching a cup of coffee and whispering to herself, "Don't mess this up." She didn't know it yet, but fate had already tied their stories tighter than either could escape. The night before the mentorship gala felt like calm before a storm. The coal industry's offices glowed under the city skyline, the hum of events and laptop fans filling the silence between Celeste and Desmond as they finalized the event details. It was nearly midnight. Celeste rubbed her temples, eyes burning. "You can go," Desmond said quietly, without looking up. "I'll finish the rest." "I'm fine," she replied, forcing a smile. "Besides, I still owe you for the last time I ruined a suit." His lips curved faintly. "You couldn't afford that suit." "You're right," she said softly. "Not anymore." The faint humor in her voice faded, replaced by exhaustion. Desmond watched her for a moment. "You really lost everything, didn't you?" She met his gaze, her expression bare. "Everything I thought mattered." For a long second, silence reigned. He didn't pity her. He just understood. That was worse, and better, all at once. The next day, Celeste arrived early to the gala venue, a converted warehouse overlooking the East River. Workers moved like clockwork, hanging banners, arranging tables, setting up lights. She wandered toward the back to catch her breath and stumbled across a storage box labeled Coal Industries, Archives. Curiosity tugged. She opened it, expecting boring files, but instead found a framed photograph, a young boy sitting beside a hospital bed, holding a woman's hand. The resemblance was unmistakable. Desmond. His mother, she realized. The inscription beneath the photo read, "For every door that closed, she opened one in my heart." Celeste's throat tightened. She'd seen the strength in him, the pride, the armor, but now she saw where it came from. Pain. Loss. Love. She wiped her eyes just as Desmond entered, stopping when he saw her holding the frame. "You shouldn't be in here," he said quietly, but there was no anger in his tone. "I'm sorry," she murmured, setting it down. "I wasn't snooping." It's fine," he interrupted, crossing his arms. "That was my mother. She passed when I was 17. Cancer." Celeste hesitated, then asked, "Was that before you started the company?" "No," he said. "It was because of her. I promised I'd build something she'd be proud of. I had nothing back then, no investors, no name, just a dream and a second-hand laptop." He smiled faintly, distant. "She used to tell me, one day, the world will see you, Desmond. But don't forget who saw you first." Celeste felt tears sting her eyes. "She must have been proud," she whispered. He looked at her. "She didn't live long enough to be." The pain in his voice hit her like a wave. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For never seeing you either." For thinking your calm was arrogance. For not realizing it was strength. He didn't pull away. For a moment, the space between them shrank until the only sound was their breathing and the faint hum of lights. We all hide behind something, he said softly. You behind privilege. Me behind pride. She smiled faintly. Maybe that's why we hate each other. We're mirrors. Maybe, he said. Or maybe we just see too much. Their eyes held, not romantic yet, but raw, real. The kind of gaze that said, I know you. Then Malik's voice echoed from outside, Boss, they need you up front. The spell broke. Desmond stepped back. We should get ready. Celeste nodded, her heart still pounding. Right. As he left, she glanced once more at the photo of his mother. For the first time, she didn't see a man who'd beaten her. She saw a man who'd survived. That night, after the event ended, Celeste returned to her small apartment and sat in silence, staring at her reflection. For the first time in her life, she didn't hate what she saw. She wasn't the billionaire's daughter or the scandal's villain. She was someone rebuilding, piece by piece. Someone learning to see. She thought about Desmond's mother, about the pain behind his eyes, and whispered, maybe redemption isn't found in rebuilding empires, maybe it's in understanding the ruins. Desmond, meanwhile, lingered in his office long after everyone left. On his desk sat a thank you note, her handwriting, neat and careful. Thank you for showing me what strength looks like when it's quiet. He stared at it for a long time, then placed it gently in his drawer. Malik entered with a grin. Good event, boss. You've got half the board in tears. Desmond smirked. I'm sure they'll recover. Malik studied him. You seem different. Do I? Yeah. Softer, maybe. Desmond didn't answer, but his eyes drifted toward the door where Celeste had stood hours ago. He whispered to himself, maybe that's not such a bad thing. The weeks after the gala passed in a strange calm. Celeste still worked long hours at Coal Industries, but the tension between her and Desmond had begun to shift, subtly, almost imperceptibly, like winter thawing into spring. He was still reserved, still disciplined, but his sharp edges had softened when it came to her. He no longer watched her with suspicion, he listened. He no longer dismissed her ideas, he asked for them. And sometimes, when their hands brushed while exchanging files or passing coffee, he didn't pull away. One morning, Celeste arrived early and found Desmond standing by the window of the conference room, staring out at the city. You're here before the sun, she said, setting down her bag. Couldn't sleep, he replied. You? Same. They stood side by side for a moment, both silent. You ever wonder, she began softly, how life can change so much in such a short time? How one moment can undo everything? He glanced at her. All the time. She smiled faintly. I used to think people like me never fell. But maybe the fall was the best thing that ever happened. It usually is, he said quietly. If you survive it. Their eyes met, warm, unguarded, fragile. She turned away quickly, flustered. You know, she said, trying to change the subject, you could smile more. It might scare your board, but it suits you. Desmond laughed, really laughed, for the first time since she'd known him. Careful, Celeste. I might get used to taking advice from you. Maybe you should, she teased. I'm good at ruining and rebuilding lives. So I've noticed. Their banter became effortless after that. They shared quiet lunches, exchanged sarcastic remarks during meetings, and occasionally lingered in conversation long after everyone else had gone. One evening, as rain streaked across the office windows, the power flickered and went out. The emergency lights hummed softly. Celeste groaned. Perfect. I hate the dark. Desmond smirked. You? The woman who faced a courtroom full of cameras. Cameras are easy, she said, her voice trembling slightly. The dark is unpredictable. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and switched on the flashlight. Then we'll face it together. She smiled, relieved. Thank you. You're welcome, he said softly. For a long time, they just sat there, two silhouettes against the glow of the city's distant lights, their shadows almost touching. A week later, Celeste invited Desmond to a small community event she'd organized through a local youth shelter, her first independent initiative. It's not fancy, she warned, but it's real. He agreed, though part of him wasn't sure why. When he arrived, he was surprised to find her surrounded by laughter and gratitude. Kids ran up to her, parents thanked her, volunteers hugged her. It wasn't the glamorous Celeste from the headlines, it was a woman stripped of ego, radiant in sincerity. Desmond watched from afar, heart-shifting in quiet awe. Later, as they walked back to their cars, she glanced at him shyly. So? Did I do okay? You did more than okay, he said. You gave them something real. You helped me remember how, she whispered. You helped me forget why I stopped trying. The air between them thickened again, not with tension this time, but possibility. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She froze, heart pounding. You don't have to thank me, he said quietly. I didn't do anything. You showed up, she replied. That's everything. That night, Desmond lay awake replaying her words. He thought of his mother's voice, of the years he'd spent closing himself off. He realized he hadn't just forgiven her, he'd started to let her in. The next morning, he brought her coffee with a small smile. Peace offering, he said. For what? She asked, confused. For all the times I assumed you couldn't change. She smiled. Peace accepted. From then on, their bond grew naturally. Small gestures became rituals, her leaving him post-it notes with jokes, him refilling her water bottle when she forgot. They became each other's steady rhythm in a world still full of noise. One late Friday evening, when the office was empty and the city pulsed beneath them, Celeste asked, Do you ever miss her? Your mom. Desmond's voice softened. Every day. But for the first time, I think she'd be proud. She would, Celeste said gently. You built something good, not just a company, but yourself. He looked at her for a long time, then whispered, You helped me remember who I was before I built the walls. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was full. Honest. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. He didn't move away this time. Neither did she. For the first time in years, Desmond felt something unfamiliar but welcome, peace. The air in the office felt different that morning, sharp, heavy, waiting. The gala's success had elevated coal industries into the spotlight once more, but with attention came scrutiny. Celeste walked in humming softly, clutching her coffee, unaware that the world outside was about to twist everything they'd built. Desmond was already in his office, his expression unreadable as his assistant Malik stood by with a grim face. What is it? Desmond asked, voice low. Malik hesitated. The press got hold of something. Photos. You and Celeste leaving the youth center last week. Some creative captions. Desmond frowned. So what? So, Malik said carefully, they're painting it as a scandal. The headlines say she's your charity case. That you're using her downfall as a PR stunt. Desmond's jaw clenched. That's ridiculous. It is, Malik agreed. But it's spreading. Fast. When Celeste arrived, she saw the looks, the whispers. Her phone buzzed with messages, reporters, old friends, vultures. Billionaire's daughter rebounds with former victim? Coal industry CEO and fallen heiress, romance or reputation play. Her throat went dry. She walked into Desmond's office, trembling. Did you see it? She asked. He nodded. We'll handle it. How? She demanded. This ruins you. It ruins everything you've built. Let them talk, he said firmly. I know the truth. It's not about truth, she said, voice rising. It's perception. You'll lose investors because of me. Then they were never the right ones, he said coldly. I don't care about, you should care, she snapped. You worked your whole life for this. You can't throw it away because of me. His tone hardened. And what makes you think you're that powerful? The words cut deeper than he meant them to. She flinched. You don't have to remind me what I am, Desmond. I already know. She turned to leave, but he caught her arm gently. Celeste, don't, she whispered, pulling free. Just don't. She walked out before he could say more. The next few days were chaos. Reporters camped outside her building. Paparazzi followed her to work. Online, her name trended again, another fall from grace. This time, it wasn't wealth that made her famous. It was shame. She stopped coming to the office, ignoring Desmond's calls. At first, he told himself it was better that way, less distraction, fewer complications. But by the third day, he couldn't stand it. He drove to her apartment, found her sitting on the floor surrounded by torn-up newspapers, her eyes red. You shouldn't be here, she said weakly. Neither should you, he replied. You think hiding makes this go away? You don't get it, she said bitterly. I've already ruined one empire. I won't ruin yours. He knelt in front of her. You think this is about business? It's always about business, she snapped. That's what people like us do. We trade, we calculate, we survive. You were right, apologies mean little after the cameras stop. So does love. He froze. Love? She bit her lip, realizing what she'd said. Forget it. No, he said softly. Say it. It doesn't matter, she whispered. It was stupid. I thought maybe this was redemption. Maybe I could make something good out of all the wrong. Her voice broke. But the world won't let me. He exhaled slowly, pain flickering across his face. You think the world gets to decide who you are? She looked up, eyes glistening. It already did. He stood, frustrated. You can't keep running from yourself, Celeste. And you can't save me, she shot back. I didn't ask you to. That silence was colder than any insult. He turned away, his voice tight. Then maybe I should stop trying. Maybe you should, she whispered. The words hung between them like ash. He left without another word. The following week was a blur. Celeste quit the PR firm quietly. Desmond buried himself in work, his temper short, his focus fractured. Malik tried to talk to him once. Boss, don't let pride ruin something good, he warned. Desmond didn't answer. Pride, that word again. It haunted him. One night, Desmond attended an awards gala he couldn't skip. Cameras flashed, questions flew, and all he could think about was her. During a speech, the presenter mentioned rising above scandal. Laughter rippled through the crowd. He felt sick. He left halfway through. Driving through the rain, he passed the youth center they'd visited together. Lights were off, but he saw her car parked outside. He stopped, hesitated, then got out. Inside, he found her sitting alone on the stage steps, staring at the empty chairs. I come here when I need to remember who I wanted to be, she said without looking up. Someone better. You already are, he said softly. You just don't see it. Neither do you, she whispered. You're so busy trying to prove you're not like them, the people who doubted you, that you've forgotten how to just be. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know how. She looked at him finally, tears in her eyes. Neither do I. They stood there, both lost, both afraid, both too proud to reach for the other. The silence stretched until it cracked. Goodbye, Desmond, she said quietly. For real this time. And before he could respond, she walked out into the rain. He didn't chase her. For the first time in his life, he didn't know how to fix something, because this time, what was broken wasn't business. The days after that night stretched endlessly for both of them, empty, echoing, full of things left unsaid. Desmond threw himself into work again, his office lights burning past midnight, his mind a blur of numbers that no longer meant anything. The city below looked like a galaxy he couldn't reach. For years, he'd told himself that success would fill the silence his mother left behind. Now he knew better. The silence was louder than ever. Malik noticed the change but didn't press. One evening, as he left Desmond's office, he said quietly, "You can win the world and still lose what matters most." Desmond didn't reply, but the words lodged deep. He went home to his penthouse, looked around at the pristine rooms, and felt only emptiness. He picked up his phone, thumb hovering over her name. He deleted it once, but somehow, the number was still there, like his heart refused to let go. He typed a message, erased it, typed again, "I'm sorry." Simple. Honest. He didn't send it. Pride still sat heavy on his shoulders. Across the city, Celeste lay awake in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling. The rain tapped against the window, steady as a heartbeat. She hadn't cried since that night. There was nothing left to cry about. She'd gone back to volunteering at the youth center, helping rebuild it after a flood had damaged the storage rooms. The children didn't care about headlines or scandals. They just saw her. That was enough to keep her moving. But every time the door opened, she hoped, foolishly, that he'd walk through. A week passed. Then two. One afternoon, while sorting donations, she found an old, water-stained flyer from the mentorship gala they'd worked on together. The sight of it made her chest ache. She whispered his name without meaning to. Desmond. That same day, Desmond sat in a board meeting, half listening as investors discussed expansion plans. One of them, a grey-haired man with too much confidence, said something that made Desmond's blood run cold. "We've secured the new contract with Harrington Global's remaining assets. We'll absorb what's left of the empire." Desmond's jaw tightened. "Cancel it," he said. "Excuse me," the man laughed. "It's a goldmine, coal." "I said cancel it," Desmond repeated. "We don't profit off broken families." The man scoffed. "It's business." "No," Desmond said, standing. "It's greed. And I'm done pretending they're the same." He walked out before anyone could respond. For the first time in months, he didn't go back to the office. He drove. No destination, no map, just streets and memories guiding him. He ended up in front of the youth center, watching from his car as Celeste carried boxes inside. She looked smaller somehow, but stronger too. Different. He got out, heart pounding. Inside, she didn't notice him at first. When she finally turned, her breath caught. "Desmond," she whispered, as if saying his name might make him disappear. He stepped closer. "You're still here," he said quietly. "I didn't think you would be." "You didn't give me much reason to be," she replied, but her tone wasn't bitter. It was tired. Human. "I thought you hated me," he said. "I thought I did too," she whispered. "But hating you hurt worse than losing you." They stood in the middle of the empty room, dust floating like snow in the sunlight. He took a breath. "I almost sent you a message," he admitted. "But I didn't know what to say." "You could have said anything," she said softly. "You could have said hello." He nodded slowly. "I'm saying it now." "Took you long enough." A small smile tugged at her lips. "Celeste," he said, stepping closer, "I don't know what comes next. I've spent my life running from my past, from people, from anything that might hurt. But I'm tired of running." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "Then stop." "I'm trying," he said. "You make it harder." "Good," she whispered. "Maybe that means it's real." He laughed under his breath, the sound breaking something open in both of them. "You were right," he said. "About what?" "About redemption. It doesn't come from winning. It comes from letting someone see you at your worst and still standing there anyway." She smiled faintly. "Then we're both redeemed." Not yet, he said. But maybe we can be. Silence hung between them, fragile and charged. He hesitated, then reached for her hand. She didn't pull away this time. Their fingers intertwined, tentative but certain. The contact felt like forgiveness, like home. That night, Desmond drove her home, neither of them saying much. When they reached her building, she turned to him. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Why come back?" He looked at her for a long time. "Because for the first time in my life, I realized I'd rather lose everything with you than win alone." Her breath hitched. "You really mean that?" "I do." "Then don't say goodbye this time," she whispered. "I'm tired of goodbyes." He smiled, small, broken, real. "Then we'll just say see you tomorrow." She leaned forward, pressed her forehead against his, and for a moment, the world outside disappeared, no cameras, no noise, just two souls finding their way back from pride and pain. Morning light spilled across the skyline like gold reborn. For the first time in a long time, Celeste woke without dread in her chest. She sat on her small balcony, coffee warming her palms, the hum of the city below feeling like music instead of noise. Her phone buzzed. A simple message from Desmond, "See you tomorrow?" She smiled, typing back, "Today's better." The youth center was buzzing when she arrived. Desmond was already there, sleeves rolled up, helping repaint the walls with the kids. His laughter filled the room, unguarded, free. When he saw her, his smile widened, a warmth that made her forget every headline, every fall, every fear. "You're early," he teased. "You said tomorrow," she said, stepping closer. "I couldn't wait." They worked side by side all morning, paint smudging their hands, memories softening their edges. The kids adored him, and she watched him with quiet awe. The man she'd once humiliated was now the man teaching her what grace looked like. During lunch, they sat on the steps outside, sharing sandwiches and sunlight. "You ever think," she said softly, "how strange it is that everything had to fall apart for us to find this?" "Maybe it didn't fall apart," he said, looking at her. "Maybe it just fell into place." She smiled, eyes glistening. "Do you ever wonder if your mother can see you now?" He nodded slowly. "Sometimes I feel like she's the reason I met you. Like she pushed me toward you to finish what she started, to teach me how to love without fear." Celeste's heart swelled. "Then I guess we both had angels looking out for us." "Or maybe just one stubborn one," he said, smiling. That afternoon, the media returned, not to scandalize, but to celebrate. Word had spread that Coal Industries had launched a permanent foundation for underprivileged youth, co-founded by Desmond and Celeste. Cameras flashed, but this time, she didn't flinch. When a reporter asked, "Miss Harrington, do you feel redeemed?" she met Desmond's gaze and answered, "Redemption isn't something you earn, it's something you live. I lost everything I thought made me valuable. Turns out, all I needed was honesty, humility, and a second chance." The crowd applauded, but the only person she saw was him. His expression said everything: pride, affection, peace. That evening, when everyone left, they lingered in the golden quiet. The painted walls glowed softly in the sunset. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked suddenly. "That night at the gala." He chuckled. "You mean the wine, the headlines, the chaos?" "All of it." He thought for a moment, then shook his head. "If that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here. So no. I don't regret the storm. It brought the calm." She laughed, tears escaping. "You always know what to say." "Only when it matters," he said gently, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You know, when you poured that wine, I thought it was anger. But now I think it was fate." She smiled through her tears. "Then here's to fate." She lifted her coffee cup in a mock toast. He grinned. "To second chances." They clinked cups and sat in silence, the moment warm and full. Later, as they walked outside, the city lights shimmered across the river. Celeste stopped, looking up at the stars barely visible between skyscrapers. I used to think happiness looked like money, parties, fame, she said. Now it looks like this, paint on my hands, coffee in my cup, and you next to me. And what does love look like? He asked quietly. She turned to him, her eyes soft and sure. Like forgiveness, she whispered. Desmond took her hand, pulling her closer. Then I guess we found it. Their lips met, slow, tender, certain. The kiss wasn't dramatic or desperate. It was the kind that came after the storm, when two souls finally recognized home. The city around them hummed, indifferent, but for them, the world had gone still. Months later, Cole Harrington Foundation became a national symbol of rebirth. Celeste stood beside Desmond at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, her name no longer tied to scandal but to hope. As she cut the ribbon, she turned to him and whispered, "We made it." "We're just getting started," he replied. That night, they hosted a small dinner for the foundation team. Laughter filled the air, and for the first time in forever, Celeste felt the weight of her past finally lift. She looked at Desmond across the table, and he mouthed, "See you tomorrow." She smiled, heart steady, full. When the evening ended, she stepped outside and took a deep breath. The city no longer felt like a cage, it felt like promise. She whispered into the night, "Thank you," not sure if she was speaking to Desmond, her father, or fate itself. Maybe all three. And somewhere inside, she knew, the girl who once poured wine out of pride had finally learned to pour love out of grace.